In US soccer, we have a competition among leagues. Yes, MLS and USL are competitors and not allies, let's be real. Usually this game is club versus club, that's how soccer is played, and not league versus league. But whatever, that's how we do it in the United States. Now some see this as a good thing and others see it as a bad thing. And at the moment, let's be real, MLS beats USL in almost every single category by quite a bit. From money to player quality, infrastructure, marketing, reach, and much more. Even though when it comes to passionate fans, USL might have a case there, despite having less in total numbers. However, over the past year or so, MLS has hit itself with some very strong self-inflicted damage, which we'll talk about throughout the episode, while USL has shown some small signs of growth when it comes to attendance and even with their TV coverage on CBS, along with them consistently teasing us that they will add promotion relegation without really getting it done. So today I put my Tampa Bay Rowdies Blues Clues jersey or uniform, whatever you want to call it, to talk about this with a very special guest. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. Now, we've talked about these topics with many pundits, former MLS players, some current professional players that play in MLS, but today we're going to be talking about it with a current USL player, and his name is Leo Fernandes that plays for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And Leo is Brazilian-American. He played soccer in college in the United States, played in MLS, played for the legendary New York Cosmos, and has been with the Rowdies since 2017. Back in 2022, he was the USL Championship MVP while playing for the Rowdies. Again, USL Championship is the second division of the United States. So we're going to be having a conversation with him today about everything I mentioned earlier in the video. Now listen, my opinion on all of these topics that I mentioned, they're pretty freaking clear, and you should know it by now. I am obviously for an open system, promotion relegation. I see the importance of all the leagues, MLS, USL, all of them, but I also like discussing the flaws, and hopefully that leads to improvements in the future. Conversations are important, whether you agree with one another or not. Now, if USL is to ever really want to compete with MLS, they have to try promotion relegation. They have to do something different. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to be mini MLS, just a minor league. Because let's be real, US soccer won't enforce pro rel on MLS. And MLS with their owners, they're never really going to do it. Why would they? And I get that, and I understand it. And listen, any type of criticism should not take away any enjoyment you have from the league. You can still criticize MLS and USL and enjoy it, right? Those are two different things. You can be critical of it and still enjoy what you're living, experiencing, and watching. But remember, soccer in America can only improve if we are willing to recognize its flaws and talk about it. Now, of course, before we start, make sure to drop a like in this video. I will not be asking during the interview, and it helps the channel a lot, so do that right now. I'm waiting for you. Just hit the like button and let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below about MLS, USL, the structure of US soccer, and your opinion on what Leo Fernandes is going to say here at the channel. Now, before we start, we'll be back in 60 seconds because we have a quick word from the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp, because I have to pay rent somehow. So we're going to have the ad and then we'll start the episode. And thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring the channel. Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. So for that reason, we are partnering up once again with BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be extremely hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. But when it's online, you can get a therapist from anywhere in the country, sometimes even anywhere in the world. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it is online. It's remote. And by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist as little as in a few days. And if the therapist that they match you with is not the right fit for you, they will replace him or her for another therapist with no additional cost. You may sign up and register now with the link that I placed on the description of this video, which is betterhelp.com/tacticalmanagertv. That is betterhelp.com/tacticalmanagertv. Yes, we used Tactical Manager TV. That link will also give you 10% off on your first month, and in the process, you'll be helping the channel avoid bankruptcy. So once again, thank you, BetterHelp. All right, everyone. Today we have a very special guest here for the channel for multiple reasons. One, Leo Fernandes is also Brazilian American like myself, so we do have a lot in common in terms of that. And surprisingly, we also grew up in New York. That's another thing too. And another thing in common is we live in Central Florida. Man, there's a lot of there's a lot of similarities right there.
Yeah. Good
But
vibes.
Leo, thank you for coming along.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you and just be on your show. I'm a big follower of your platform.
Yeah, currently a Tampa Bay Rowdies player in USL Championship. Tampa Bay Rowdies, uh, maybe among like the younger soccer fans in this country, they don't know. But if you go even to the stadium where they play in Ao Lang, you'll see pictures where the Rowdies were playing against Pele in the late 70s, early 80s. So it is a club that's been around for a long time in the United States. I would consider it a traditional club in U.S. soccer, despite not being in Major League Soccer these days. But I think today what I want to revolve this episode around is talking about USL and MLS. You play in MLS, you currently play in USL. You have a very good grasp of US soccer, the landscape, how it works. You played in college. You've been in it for way too long at this point.
Long time, man. Yeah.
Yeah. How many years have you played professionally at this point? Counting you not even professionally, counting the college days, MLS, USL. How long have it been at this point?
So just professionally, this is my 13th year pro. And then obviously spent 4 years in college as well. So a long time, long. Got a lot of miles in these legs, but I'm still feeling good and I'm still enjoying the game. So I think that's the most important thing, right? You should go to work happy and wanting to play and compete. And I'm still at that mindset.
And then now let's talk about the leagues. Let's go to that, and hopefully we get very controversial here. I like getting you speak as much as you want and go as far as you want with it. So last season, MLS had the MLS Cup final with two huge markets. It was the Galaxy, LA, right? And the Galaxy are a traditional team in MLS, and New York was also in the final. And USL had markets that are considered, I would say, small markets, right? It wasn't the biggest USL markets in the final. But in linear TV, in linear broadcast in English, the USL Championship drew 431,000 on CBS, and MLS in English on Fox drew 427,000. Now, when you put Fox Deportes in Spanish, it gets 468. So MLS would be a little bit ahead of USL in that sense. And then news like this came out. MLS Cup sees a 47% drop in broadcast audience, obviously in linear. We know a lot of the MLS fans watch on Apple TV. So take that into context. And I'm not even questioning that MLS has a larger audience, more money, more resources, more infrastructure. But in the US, we have a competition among leagues because it's a closed pyramid. My question to you is this, just to start right away with a very hot question. Do you see a scenario where many years from now, USL overtakes or starts to legitimately challenge MLS as the first division of the United States? Is that even possible?
Oof. What a great first question, right?
Well, not a great, a nasty one, but yeah.
Look, I think for me, it's very difficult, right? MLS has been around for a while now. USL is rarely new, but from those numbers that you said, it's good for the USL, right, and not so good for MLS. Would I say that USL can overtake MLS? I would say it's tough. It's very tough, just because. I mean, you see the MLS league now, the standards are so high with like the stadiums and the players that they're getting, and even obviously Messi, but all the other world-class players that they have in the teams. Wouldn't say world-class, but like top players. And the USL is still growing. You have good stadiums like our stadium is beautiful, but then you go to other places and the level is not there. We're playing at like half grass, half dirt field. So I think the USL still has a long way to go. I think that they can do a couple of little things here and there to probably challenge MLS, but for them to overtake the MLS, it would be very tough. I see something where maybe they can work together and then drive soccer forward like that. But I don't see one league taking over another league.
Yeah, I think that it's important to say one thing that the first thing you said actually is very important. You said those numbers look good for USL and they look kind of bad for MLS. I think in terms of USL reaching MLS, it has more to do with what MLS does and less what USL does. It's more of MLS hurting itself to bring
Hmm.
itself down, and then USL with some steady growth can kind of come close. But you're right. Like in every single category right now, if we are 100% fair, infrastructure, youth resources, the players that they're capable of bringing, right? We couldn't, let's be real, like Messi, Suarez, they wouldn't come play in USL at this stage of their careers and bringing the money that you have to bring them, the market also, it just wouldn't happen. And the reach, right, too. I will say one thing though, in terms of like, I went to like the Rowdies games last season twice, 2 or 3 times. I went to the Rowdies games. Once even you helped us getting tickets, once or twice actually. You got tickets once. The other one I just bought tickets because I wanted to watch the game early in the season. You guys put 7,000 people, which is the max capacity of the stadium, in
Hmm.
every single game that I went, and the fans were very passionate, very loud for the amount that was there, and when I went to many MLS games, there were plenty that I can say that were not as good. Some were better. I thought Austin, at least when I went to 3 or 4 games in Austin. I thought it was really good. The fan base there. I know LAFC is great. I heard the Seattle Sounders. I've never been to Seattle, but I heard it's a really good fan base.
Yeah.
On the other hand, many are not. How is it with USL with other teams? Because I haven't been able to experience it in other places. And what I said, does it make sense? Do you agree with me? Would you say the fans in USL do have a bit more passion than MLS as a whole, or is that an unfair statement?
I think I think it's for the Rowdies. Yeah, the passion is there. Like you said in the beginning, this is one of the oldest clubs in America.
Hmm.
I talked to my family in Brazil, and they know about the Tampa Bay Rowdies because of Pele and the New York Cosmos. So in terms of just being a worldwide brand, the Rowdies have that, and they have the fans. If you go to games, you see all types of fans. Like you'll see fans from the teams when they were in the 70s, and then you have the new up and coming fans that love this generation of the Rowdies players. So I think for other teams, yeah, they have a great atmosphere. Like for example, like Detroit City FC, like they have that like it feels like you're playing in like a second division Brazil team where like the fans are in your face and like they're giving you a proper atmosphere. And then but you do have the other places where you're playing against like 600 people, and it feels like a
Like a
reserve.
high school game.
Exactly. So it's tough to get up for those games, but um, yeah, there's definitely a couple of areas that are really nice to play in front, and there's other areas that aren't so great. And I feel like I've seen that in the MLS as well. I grew up in New York, so it was times when I would go to like Red Bull Arena, and the stadium was a little bit empty, but then you sign like big
A
time
little
players.
bit.
Yeah. So, but for me, I was a young kid. I was happy just to go to games and watch a professional team. But then when I first joined the MLS, like going to Seattle, going to Galaxy, and like seeing these proper like these fan bases just yelling in your faces, it was great. So I think each city has its pros and cons. I would definitely say that the Rowdies are top, one of the best in the country when you're comparing fan bases.
So we laid the ground, and it's for the difference between the two leagues in terms of size, which I mean, it's a lot of the things we said are kind of obvious to many of the fans that follow soccer in America. Uh, so what can USL do to actually catch up to MLS or try to do it? I know many can say, well, get more investors, get more money. Of course, right?
Yeah.
That easier said than done. But very often, I had Greg Lalas here on the channel a while back when he worked with USL. Right now, he's not. About to talk about pro rel with promotion relegation within USL, because one of the big issues for USL to catch up to MLS is very often it feels like it's a very similar structure. There's no promotion relegation. You have the conferences, you have the playoffs, and you win it. You win the league. You won it or you didn't win it, and that's it. And the next season, do it over again. So I know there are differences. I know the teams are more independent from the league, right? You get your own jersey suppliers. Like there's differences. While MLS, you see everyone's Adidas. There are differences. Sure, we don't have to dive into that. But the only way I can see USL having a shot over the long term is if they try to do something different. Because if you're going to try to be the same as MLS, but have less money, worse stadiums, smaller investors, there's a 0% chance that you can catch up or compete with MLS. MLS has a lot of money and they're way ahead, like we talked about, in multiple things. So my question to you is this: are you for the promotion relegation being implemented in USL at some point? Have the players heard anything about it? Because we've seen USL tease us about this for a long time. They've talked about it. We've been teased, but it's not happening. And I know there's issues with ownership. Some don't want it, some want it. What have you heard?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think obviously for myself, being a fan of the sport in Brazil and Europe, I obviously want Pro Rel. It's no question about it. I think the competition, the pressure, and all that, it just makes better players. It makes better leagues and better entertainment for everybody. It's not just 8 teams make the playoffs and the other 4 or 6 you try again next year. It would be better for everybody if there was pro rel, and obviously you can't invest in the club if they can't go to the first division. You know what I mean? You can invest in the club and make it like your whatever side hobby or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I own a professional team, but there is a big difference if there was pro rel and then relegation. But what I've heard with the USL, I'm probably on the same boat as you. I've heard a little bit of talks here and there, maybe after the World Cup or whatever it is. But if it was me, I'm like you. I'm going to try something. I'm not going to just wait until the ship sinks and not do anything. I'd rather go out and swinging and try to do pro rel or just to change something up, be different from other leagues here in the country. Obviously, it's so tough because the biggest thing is the how they get teams, how they get the franchises. They pay the big price, and owners don't want to lose that money. So yeah, good luck trying to convince an owner that you can go to the second division or third division after they paid a boatload of money. But in my personal opinion, I believe that there should be pro rel. And I think the USL should try to implement it in some sort of way. I know this year they have the Jägermeister Cup where we play against like just League One teams, and so it's basically the Open Cup, but just for the USL team. They try to do something different. In my opinion, that's probably not enough. They need to keep adding on to it and just try different things.
Yeah, I think some of the owners might lack long-term vision, because if they do something like that, sure, there's risk with your asset of getting promoted or relegated. Actually, just relegated, that's the risk. But you also have the benefits of getting promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also just general growth. Like if the league implements that and it grows as a whole, whether it is the second division, third division, first division, maybe a few years from now, a decade or so, the second division could be worth more than the current first division right now, the way it is. If
Mm-hmm.
popularity grows and you get more investors, because you kind of said it yourself, when there's no way. So let's talk about like USL League One, which would technically be the third division of soccer in the US and the second division of USL, right? Why would someone pour in a lot of money into that if they can't get to the first one? There's a ceiling of how much they're going to be willing to invest because, okay, I win it, but I can't go up.
Yeah.
Now, it's not just about investing. It's also the communities. How much more motivated would be a community where they're in the third or fourth division with minimal investment, but just the local players in general, as they improve over the years? Obviously, that's not going to magically happen. You're not just going to magically get good players locally out of nowhere. But over the years, you create a culture. And, it becomes one of those when you get promoted, it affects the community in a positive way, financially, everything. So everyone's together and it builds a soccer culture within the country. And look, I'm not here to dream and come up with bullshit. And I know how difficult it is to implement and to convince investors to take the risk when they can go through a franchise system, which is, I wouldn't say risk-free. There's risk in MLS. There's risk in USL, even in a closed system, but it's definitely much smaller, right? We see that in MLS all the time. Like the Chicago Fire is a good example. They've been crap for multiple years. And then now they got Greg Berhalter, but they're making, which I don't think he's a good coach, but they're getting a bunch of good players.
Yeah.
So you can be crap in MLS, one of the worst teams in the league for 10 years, 5 years,
Yeah.
And one year you decide, you know what, let's invest now. And then you're a title contender.
Yeah.
Some say that's cool, and sure. But you know what's cooler? When you punish a team for sucking. You punish them. Oh, get relegated. Oh, I want to invest then in the second division, come back up and come
Yeah.
compete. And we see teams get punished, restructure. If you go to Brazilian soccer, you can talk about like Santos, for example. They started to suck, they got relegated.
Yeah.
They had to restructure, find a new way, organize themselves. Now they're back in the first division. Neymar's coming back. They're making good signings.
Yeah.
Clubs don't necessarily, if you do it correctly, clubs don't die from
Yeah.
getting relegated.
Of course
I
not.
mean, it's usually poor management.
Yeah.
And my question to you too is this, because very often in other soccer countries, the competition in soccer is among clubs. Doesn't matter what division you are, you're competing each other in the FA Cup, in the Champions League, it's among cups. But in the US, we have this competition among leagues. It's MLS versus USL. It's not the Rowdies versus Orlando City. It's USL versus MLS. Do you see that as something that affects U.S. soccer in a negative way, positive way, or it doesn't really matter? It's the same as a competition among clubs. I don't know if I was clear with that question. Did it make sense?
Yeah, it made sense. It made sense. Yeah, I think I look at it both ways, right? I think as players, we just see it as a little bit of like a rivalry. So like if we do play Orlando, it's not about USL versus MLS. It's like, all right, especially when I was younger and all the younger players now that play here in the Rowdies, they're like, all right, this is my chance to prove to these guys that I'm just as good as you and I can play for Orlando. And then I do see it as the fans' way. Some fans in Orlando, they'll probably look down on it just because like, oh, it's USL. Like we should be battering these guys when, it's not like yes, it's a difference, but on any given day, a USL team will beat an Orlando team, especially if that Orlando team is putting out their second team. That game is going to be highly competitive. And we see that in the Open Cup all the time. If a team comes out with their second string or puts the academy players, that USL team is 80% chance is going to win, unless the MLS team takes it serious. But I think for me, the biggest thing is like there is rivalries, especially with the local, Tampa, Orlando, and Tampa and Miami, and we need to find a way where we can play these games more often. Usually we only play Orlando in the Open Cup, and the fans like it. But
and a lot of them pulled out of Open Cup.
Exactly. So it seems like they're trying to not have these games, or have MLS Next Pro play in these games, which is it's not fun for anybody to it's not fun for the fans. Or if the fans don't think that the MLS team should play against a USL team, then I don't think that's right for the sport. You know what I mean? I think they're just picking and choosing on which games they want to play, and I think soccer's an open sport. Everyone should be able to play. Everyone should be able to enjoy it. But going back to what you said in the investors, you would get a lot more investors in all over the world if it was an open system, right? Because nobody.
Most likely, yeah.
You look at all these American investors that are investing in Europe now, and like you've seen the show in the
and Brazil, Leo, and in Brazil.
Oh yeah, of course. And like, look at what's it called? What is
John
it?
Texter.
Yep. So it's there's opportunity everywhere. So you would like to see it over here, but it just seems like we're kind of missing the boat on that point.
Yeah, and the thing with this competition among leagues is you see very often, people like to hear this or not, you do see MLS trying to bully smaller leagues in certain markets. I'll give you an example right now. At the time of this recording, this game hasn't been played yet, and I don't know if many people know about this. Orlando City and Inter Miami are going to play a preseason friendly here in Florida. Orlando City is in Orlando. Miami's in Miami. So if I were to ask you, where are they playing this game? You'd say, well, probably in Orlando or Miami, right? Why not, right? Playing one of their homes. Well, they're playing in Tampa. And my question is why? We have stadiums in Orlando. We have 2 stadiums in Orlando. We have 2 or 3 stadiums in Miami. Why are they playing in Tampa? It's pretty obvious. It's to catch into some of the Rowdies market, to bring in them, hey, come watch Messi. You don't have to watch the Rowdies. You can watch Messi. Buy a Messi jersey, which is fine. You have to make money, but it's quite clearly to sabotage or to attack one of the league, which was what the U.S. Open Cup was all about too,
Yeah,
right? When they attacked the Open Cup, the Open Cup is the only cup or competition right now in the United States where we get to see the first division MLS playing the second division teams and even some semi-pro teams that
yeah,
participate too. But that was kind of stripped away from the fans, and they're saying, "Oh, there was not an audience." Yeah, there are ways to promote it better, and even if there wasn't a big audience, there was an audience. If we're going to eliminate everything that doesn't have an audience, we would eliminate the Colorado Rapids right now because there's not an audience for that team. So
yeah,
again, I don't buy into the excuses, and I think that does hurt quite a bit U.S. soccer. This competition among leagues, it should be among clubs,
yeah.
right? Now, let me ask you one thing to close this talk about the leagues. As USL players, how did you guys take the news when you heard it was last year or 18 months ago, something like that? Last year it happened, but I think Garber announced it
Yeah.
earlier. How did you guys take the news when MLS said they were pulling out of the Open Cup due to a congested schedule because they created it out of making the Leagues Cup? They made the congested schedule and they pulled out of the Open Cup. Did
Yeah.
USL players get frustrated by it? Because it's a bit disrespectful, right?
Yeah.
You guys,
Well,
um,
to be honest, my first initial thoughts were like, all right, let's win this and then we'll go play Champions League. If they don't want that spot, we'll take it. It was one of those where it's like, this is our chance to win the Open Cup. Obviously, one of the USL teams, Sacramento, they made it to the finals a couple of years back. So I'm a highly competitive person. I was like, okay, fine, we'll just win it and then we'll go play in another tournament. And at first that's what I thought, but then for me, it's like I just want to play the best competition that I can play. I want to play at the highest level that I can play, and against the best player that I can play at the time. So after thinking about it for a while, I was like, okay, it's probably a mistake for them not wanting to play in this Open Cup, and they'll realize soon. The fans will be mad. There will be some outrage, just because you see it everywhere else in the world, where the big time team has to go somewhere that they're uncomfortable, and like, why is an MLS team just acting like that? Are they really above all these standards? Are they above like Premier League teams where they can't go to, a turf field in Detroit or Pittsburgh? And it's like, if you come to Al Lang, it's like a beautiful stadium. It's not
mhm.
like you're going, to a shithole or whatever. So I don't know. It was one of those where obviously it's probably the money. It's always the money. The money is really probably the biggest reason behind all the decisions that people make in terms of soccer decisions here in the United States. So, yeah, I was a little bit. I wanted to show them, all right, no problem. We'll just win. We'll take the trophy. We'll take the money, no problem. And then we'll play in this Champions League tournament. But I wasn't sure if they're going to give us a spot. But it is what it is.
Yeah, the problem too is like you're right, and MLS is a business, USL is a business. They should honestly do whatever is, in their best interest to make more money. I am not against that for either
Mhm.
league, but the problem is U.S. soccer. They should
Mhm.
be the one regulate. They should be the ones regulating it. So like you,
100%.
MLS was like, I'm gonna leave the Open Cup. Then U.S. Soccer should have said, okay, if you don't play in the Open Cup, we will revoke your Division One status. And
Yeah,
so again, or the sanction in this case,
yeah,
that would break MLS. It has to come from U.S. soccer, and it does feel like the MLS gets preferential treatment very often, which I don't think that should be the way. I think every single professional league should be supported. That's how we're going to grow because the U.S. is a massive country, and MLS cannot, just they can't touch every single place. There's many markets they're not into, and we
yeah,
need more teams. We need more clubs to get more kids in academies, more kids playing, more soccer fans, everything. It's a very big country. It's like multiple European countries together.
yeah.
Um, and on top of all of that, it's interesting that I want to mention one more thing because you talked about this and it's still stuck in my head. You said that MLS fans would sometimes look down on USL teams
Yeah.
as if, oh, we got to play a USL team, whatever, so they wouldn't take it seriously. One thing I noticed, and you tell me if you agree with me or not, talking to many USL fans, they seem to despise MLS. Have you noticed that? Not
Uh,
all of them, but many of them seem to not really like MLS. It's not even like a I don't care about MLS because I'm a Rowdies fan. It's more of like they're not looking down on MLS because MLS is definitely above USL. We talked about it for multiple reasons. They seem to really dislike MLS.
I think for me it's one of those things where I think just like the casual soccer fan or the casual American soccer fan, they see like one pro league and everything under that is like a minor league club or like a feeder club. And they're not used to, the European model or the Brazilian league model where it's like, no, it's first division, second division, third division, fourth division. And all these clubs are professional. All these clubs, pay their players and they all make a living playing soccer. But then you speak to a couple like just like casual soccer sports fans, and they're like, oh yeah, Rowdies or USL, like, oh, it's a feeder club, right? Or like it's a
Mhm.
minor league. I'm like, second division, but I guess you can call it minor league, but it
It's
is.
not really a minor league.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
exactly. So it's hard for them to change their thinking. It's one that I've stopped arguing for a long time, just because it's like they're gonna think that no matter what, they grew up on baseball and basketball and football where it's one division, and that's all they can comprehend. But in terms of other USL, I would say Rowdies fans hating MLS, I think just Rowdies fans are very authentic. They love the Rowdies. They don't care what league they play in. They don't care if they play in the USL, NASL, MLS. Like they're gonna support the Rowdies no matter what. I think a lot of MLS fans, they like as soon as it's an MLS team, there's like 100,000 new fans of the sport. So they kind of come out of nowhere. So I think that's what they hate. They just hate like the MLS fan or like the Division One fan. Like instead of just being a fan of the sport or the fan of the club, they're a fan of the franchises or the league, and that's what I've seen a little bit. I do notice that USL is a little bit more connected with the culture
The
and
community.
with the community. Yeah, exactly. So of my time that I've been here, it's like I know a lot of the fans by their first name. And they come to every game. They're all season ticket holders. So it's been definitely I'm definitely a part of the community here now with my wife and my kids. So I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, we're close to ending the episode, but you being Brazilian American, I can't believe I didn't ask you this before because it's something I've been preaching for so long. Brazil's a big country too in terms of size, like the US, and we have the state tournaments in Brazil, which are very popular. They've existed for multiple decades, and they are a big reason Brazil has the soccer culture that it has, the
Yeah,
rivalries. Um, don't you think this would be something that if MLS and USL weren't competing with each other, it'd be something for US soccer to implement as like almost like I would say like to kick off the season
yeah,
every year, the first month of the season, a state or regional tournament. Like for example, we could have here, we can go Georgia and Florida, so that would be Atlanta United. We would have Miami FC, Tampa Bay Rowdies, Inter Miami, Orlando City. Have like 5 to 6 clubs.
yeah.
Do like a quick group stage, semifinals, final every year to kick off and have something at stake, like a spot in an advanced round in the Open Cup, a spot on
Mhm.
this or that. Um, Whatever, like something to build rivalries and culture among it. And again, that's what I talk about when I say that leagues fighting each other, it hurts. We could have a tremendous rivalry between the Rowdies and Orlando. We're super close,
Yeah,
very close. And I said this multiple times. It doesn't feel like a rivalry. It just
yeah.
doesn't feel like one.
Oh yeah.
Because, like you said, Orlando City fans look down on it, and Tampa Bay Rowdies fans don't like Orlando City for the most part.
No.
Not because of a rivalry, it's just because of what we talked about with MLS. I just don't like it.
Yeah. No, it's funny story. My first game ever with the Rowdies, we played Orlando City B, when they were in the USL, and
Mhm,
like it was a sick atmosphere just because they had to get like a pop-up stand
mhm.
in the other side of the stadium, and they put all the Orlando fans over there. So it was like a proper game. Like I can tell the fans did not like each other. There was a bunch of fights after games. So it was like,
When
okay,
was that? When was that?
2017.
17.
So it was a long time ago, but like that's when I noticed. I was like, oh, there's an actual rivalry here. And then in 2022, we went over there and we played at their stadium, and I remember just the fans going after us and going after our fans. So it is definitely a little bit of a rivalry, but like you said, like these are ideas that need to be at least like talked about. Just because I think the main focus, main point of these conversations is to let people know that soccer has to be pushed forward together. If MLS wants to build up the MLS and take over everything, it's just going to hurt soccer. It's just going to hurt our players, our future players. So I think the main point of all these conversations is how do we build up soccer? How do we connect all the leagues, or just make a proper pyramid and move soccer forward instead of trying to build and trying to take down markets and claim your territory, or you know what I mean? It's only going to hurt players and the younger generation and then the competition aspect.
And unfortunately, that's something that U.S. soccer has to do something about,
Exactly.
and they seem to just kind of get bullied by MLS. And every single time that there's an issue, MLS bullies them, and MLS gets more or less of what they want
Yeah.
for multiple reasons. But Leo, that's all for today. I want to thank you very much for coming along for that. I'm wishing you the best of luck this season with the Rowdies. I'll be going to a few games. I'll be watching there. I have to, yeah. It's an obligation, but honestly, I enjoy it very much because also you end the game. You're in St. Petersburg, beautiful place, great restaurants. And by the way, anyone watching this, if you made it this far in the video, if you ever are in Tampa, make sure to go to a Rowdies game. The stadium is beautiful. You can see the whole Tampa Bay area. Great restaurants in the St. Petersburg area, and very safe, very fun to bring your family. And like I said, when those games are sold out, and every single one that I went to last year was sold out, it was very fun. I enjoyed it. If you look back here, do you see here? That's a Tampa Bay Rowdies mascot and the beer.
Yeah. It's Pete the
beer.
I
got it right there. So, but Leo, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.